As an Icelander, I get asked so many questions about what it's like being from Iceland, what it's like growing up in Iceland, and especially because I was raised a lot abroad, so I truly have like a very split experience of living in Iceland and also being able to compare it to other countries. And then living in Iceland as a teenager and then moving to the States as an adult and kind of being back and forth. So I really have such a comparison between Iceland and the US, especially. I was born in Iceland, and at the age of 3, my family and I moved to Spain. Then we were there for 2 years. We lived in Belgium for 3 years, and then California for 4 years. So I was 12 years old when I moved back home to Iceland, and I was here for a full 10 years before I moved back to New York. And one of the things that I love most about Iceland is that it never feels like it changes. And I'm sure the people that live in Iceland disagree, especially in the last few years. A lot about Iceland has kind of changed. Just like there's more buildings being built. There's like this whole thing called þétting, which means like let's get residential areas, let's make them, more what's the word, like tight, so like build more like apartment buildings, and then to kind of be able to create these like walkable communities. And people disagree on whether this has actually been a good thing or a bad thing, if this has created walkable communities, or because we're a country where you truly need your car because the weather is, not great. Like right now it's like 5 degrees Celsius, it's raining, it was snowing this morning. A lot of people, like my mom works in the ER, and all day yesterday she was dealing with people who had like fallen on their heads because it was so slippery outside, and it was like black ice, you couldn't really see it. So anyway, so people kind of disagree about is Iceland changing too fast, is it changing enough, is it keeping up with the times? But for me, as someone who like is truly Icelandic, and like I have my family here, I have like a very tight-knit group of friends, and those friends have been my friends for decades at this point. It always, the second I land back home in Iceland, it's as if no time has passed. Even in times where I've been in the States for maybe, over 6 months even. I usually like make sure when I'm living there that I come home at least twice a year. Sometimes that's not been able to happen for whatever reasons, but it feels like I was here yesterday whenever I land. And I think that just speaks to also Iceland as a culture. Like everything is we do have our own traditions, and we have like the spots we like, we have the swimming pools we like, we have the friends we like. I know for foreigners, when they move to Iceland, if they're able to like get a job here and get a work visa, whatever, one of the things they struggle with is making new friends. Because in Iceland, I actually didn't realize this until I moved away, and like in Iceland, we truly have our group of friends, and our group of friends is our group of friends. In America, I would go to a party and I would be like someone's plus one, just like a friend's plus one, and they didn't necessarily even know the person that was hosting the party. It would just be like, bring your friends, or like it's someone's birthday and it'll be like at a bar, and it's just like, bring whoever, even if you've never met the birthday boy or girl, like just show up. It's all about like combining different groups of people and like introducing people to other people. In Iceland, that's not really a thing unless it's like truly a networking event, or there's like a reason behind it. Like if I was meeting up with my group of girlfriends from college and I would just bring a friend that I'd be like, oh, I think you guys will get along, it would be so awkward. Like they would be like, what are you doing? Versus in the US, like my group of friends, if someone brings someone from, a work, or, I worked as an actor for a ton of years. So it was always like, oh, like we're doing a musical together, like, can they come? Of course. So great to meet more people, like, just gain more friends. In Iceland, it truly is like your friends are your friends. And if you make new friends, it's because it's like in a work setting, it's project based, it's based maybe around your kids, and your kids are always hanging out. But even then, I feel like my kids hang out with my friends' kids more than I hang out with my kids' friends' parents, if that makes sense. But my kids are still young. My older one is almost 4, so she's not truly at that stage of like going over to someone's house after school. But I feel like in the States, it's more centered around like who are the kids hanging out with, and then the parents are friends. And here, even like I have a lot of friends that are just because our parents were friends as a kid. So we would go camping together. We would hang out, more in those types of settings, where I feel like my friends in the US, I've met them through school and we hang out primarily because of our kids. And then obviously I like the moms, so we keep hanging out. But that is kind of a distinction. And that's something that I know that a lot of foreigners struggle with when they come to Iceland, because how are you supposed to meet, especially Icelandic people, if everyone just already has their individual group? So I think a lot of expats here end up hanging out with other expats unless they're, married to an Icelander or are working with an Icelandic company. So that's kind of a cultural difference that I honestly didn't notice until I left here. I thought it was just like this everywhere. A very kind of obvious thing that I hate about Iceland, especially in the winters, is just the weather. I don't do well with cold weather. I just really hate it. And not just the cold, because when I'm in New York, our winters there will be colder than in Iceland most of the time. Like it'll be below freezing there in Celsius. Like I still haven't learned Fahrenheit after all these years. So it'll be like maybe -5 in New York, and it'll be +5 in Iceland. The difference is in New York, it'll just be cold, and maybe it'll like snow, whatever. In Iceland, it might be a little bit warmer, but there will be winds that are like hurricane level. And if it's raining, it doesn't rain like this, it rains like this. So being outside is just a miserable experience, because you just get like attacked by the weather. I feel like in New York, I've always found it easier to dress the weather, off me or whatever, however you say it, I don't know. Like it's always been easier to just like put on layers and a good coat and like an umbrella. Like in Iceland, you cannot use an umbrella. Forget about it. An umbrella will go boop within 5 seconds of you being outside, because our wind levels are just so intense. But that brings me to something that I do love about Iceland, which is that our houses are built good. Like these mother beep can withstand anything. Earthquakes, crazy winds. I guess those are two main things they have to deal with. Like in the States, any apartment I've rented or like house I've been in, I'm always kind of like, really? Like, is this not gonna like fall apart if it gets a little too windy? And or like basements will flood all the time. That's something that we're not as familiar with in Iceland, or like it feels like the foundations are so much stronger and just better built, and the things that are expected to happen, like the earthquakes and the winds and stuff, they are kept in mind when the houses are being built. It feels like sometimes in America, they're just like, oh my God, my roof like flew off my house because it wasn't attached good enough. It was like hot glued on or something. And then a hurricane comes and everyone's just like fucked. So I think that's something that I've always appreciated about Iceland. I have heard some complaints about these newer apartment buildings, like I was talking about earlier, the like þéttingbyggðar, that like tightness of the neighborhoods or communities or whatever. That some of these newer houses, they're like apartment buildings, there might be some like shortcuts that are being taken. So there's more like leaks, and then leaks will cause mold, and mold will kill you basically. So that has been some like issue with the newer buildings. But like any old building that was built by like the dudes back in the day, solid, don't need to worry. I mean, obviously check, like make sure everything's okay so you don't have mold anywhere, but generally like these houses will stand no matter what earthquake comes, Speaking of mold, that has been a big issue with like preschools in Iceland. I've a very mixed feelings about how I feel about like preschool in Iceland and like daycare centers and in the US, because now I've experienced both with my older kid, and it's so different in the sense that in Iceland, first of all, it's subsidized. So I don't get a heart attack when I'm billed for, my daughter's care. Whereas in the US, you're just like, this is like somebody's rent check, okay? In my daughter's Icelandic school, she gets breakfast if we're there like early enough. So that's like a good thing. If I have to be at work earlier, or like my husband has to take her earlier, we can just like go. She'll get some oatmeal, and then for lunch she always gets a hot meal, and then they get like an afternoon snack. And yeah, in the US, the first school she went to, first of all, it was only like 9 to 3 or something, which was like not enough for us at the time, but whatever. And we had to send her with like a morning snack, which was fine. And then for lunch, it was like catered there, but it was like pizza and chicken fingers with French fries and this like disgusting, like I fought so hard with that school. They hated me so much because I was just like, these kids are like around 2 years old. You are feeding them garbage, and like their brains are so teeny. You can't be feeding them pizza every week. And like like, don't get me started. It drove me absolutely so mad. So that part I hate it. And then, but in other schools she's been in New York, we just have to send food for like the entire day. So like a morning snack and like a sandwich or whatever for lunch. And then we would pick up and like she would get like an afternoon snack at home. So that's like the biggest difference I've noticed, is that, and that school here in Iceland, they're eating good. It'll be like, fish and potatoes, like with, like vegetables, like lasagna. I'm trying to think what else she was eating this week. Like fish, it's like fish twice a week at least. And then just like hearty, like home cooked style meals. So that I love. However, she wasn't able to start here until she was like 2.5, which was fine because before that we were in New York, and there, I mean, daycare in New York, you can start it at like 2 weeks because the mom has to go right back to work and the dad will see the kid next year sometime. So that's a whole separate video, I think, on the whole difference between raising kids in Iceland and the US, but just with like schools in particular. Oh yeah, I started talking about this because of the mold. In Iceland, there has been an issue with a lot of preschools. They've been having like mold issues for some reason. So a lot of kids will be between 2 and 3 years old, maybe older than 3, and not have access to preschool because there's just not enough buildings, there's not enough staff. It's been a huge issue. And this is obviously a very big like feminist issue because it always ends up, or usually tends to be, the mom that's staying home with the kids because they don't have daycare. And there are like private daycare centers, they're called dagmamma, which means like daytime mom, which is kind of, I don't know, the word kind of makes me sad. That will be like in someone's home and they have like 10 kids, but it's maybe like 1 or 2 dagmammur, or dagmammur plural. I personally haven't looked into that just because I have heard some horror stories about that. I can talk about that more. I'm going to do a whole separate video about childcare stuff, in case someone's watching this that's like, I don't care about these kids. But so yeah, this is, I'm going to do more of these videos where I'm kind of just talking about things I like and don't like about Iceland. Leave a comment if you have anything particular you want me to talk about. But having lived so many years abroad, I got so homesick, and I love my country so much. Like when I'm here, I feel just like, that feeling, just like, there's like a release of anxiousness that I feel when I'm sometimes in the US. So I'm gonna do more of these where I just kind of tell you guys about my country. I hope you visit. If you do, can I plug this car rental company that I work with? I've been a paying customer with them in the past and just love them. They're called Go Car Rental, and they gave me a discount code to give to you guys. It's under5 or under5, and definitely use them if you come to Iceland, because like I said, the weather is disgusting. So you need a car. You like don't. Our public transportation sucks. I'll talk about that also in a separate video. Oh, my dad's here. Another thing I love about Iceland, he's coming here to babysit for me. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay, bye.